Hello, everyone. So today's episode is going to have a different theme. It's going to have a different flavor. It's going to be with a chef. His name is Chef Yazan. Chef Yazan used to be a private jet chef. Now he's working as a consultant for restaurants and airlines to consult them in their menus. He's going to take us into a journey into the world of being a chef. He's going to be discussing several topics, out of which how did traveling and experiencing different cultures have inspired and enhanced the culinary cuisine. He's going to be talking about how did cuisine, how are the cuisines are influenced by the availabilities of certain ingredients within a certain region. In addition, he's going to be talking about how are the genetics play a role in the body weight and the ability to adapt to different cuisines. Today's episode is very fun. It's going to have a different theme from what we usually go for. I hope you enjoy it. Please leave your comments in the section below and stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you very much. Okay, Yazan, so how are you today? Let me start off the conversation by a simple question. How are you today?
I'm motivated. I'm good.
Good
Yeah.
to know. Yazan,
Yeah.
for those who don't know you, this is my first time that I meet you. My name is Reda, and you're Yazan Abu Ghazala, I think. And just please introduce the audience of who is Yazan.
I've been told we're human beings, not human doings. So I'm trying to avoid saying what I do as much. I'm a Palestinian Jordanian citizen. I've been living in the UAE for 12 and a half years. I consider myself like a person who's full of enthusiasm, emotions, and I am getting to know myself day by day. I think it's a process. At the same time, I'm passionate about what I do, and that's something we can talk more about it. Yeah.
Sure.
But being a chef is part of who I am, not only what I do. So I would like to introduce myself as that as well, musician, and also a person who's like sees art in things. Yeah. And a big thinker. Yeah.
You know, Yazan, you've been living here in the UAE ever since how many years now? Like
12 and a half. Wow.
12 and a half years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Still لساتك جديد تعتبر هون. Still a new person هون لساتك بالUAE.
I mean, compared to you, 25 years.
Oh yeah, والله like I've been living here my whole life. إنه
Yeah.
ما أنا صغير إنه بس ألبس الغطرة والعقال خلص إنه literally هون
You're a
من
local.
البلد يعني بصير.
cool.
Where have been Yazan been before? Like, take me through your studies and like where you lived in your life. What you worked in? شو درست? What did you do basically?
So ever since I was 5, I was so into cooking with my father and my mother. Especially my father is he loves cooking. He lived in Italy, so there's a lot of Italian food in the house. And but I never thought I'd be a chef. It has been like always a passion. And I noticed that when I was a teenager, I was actually watching a lot of cooking shows. And back then, to be a chef, it wasn't something popular yet. And it was like recently just a new, channel opened up for food in the Middle East. So still people are not familiar with the idea of being a chef.
Very true.
I never thought of it. So I was like, okay, I will keep that as a passion. But I might go into hospitality. And then when I reached my high school, I took hotel management as the high school option. And because I was excited, there was a cooking part of it. And I could be basically Jordanian Tawjihi, it's called. You could study the same subjects of the literature. We call it Adabi. And once you pass, you can have the same options for the Adabi and the universities to study. So I was like, okay, perfect. So I can do something. But I also aimed to, and this is something about me, I always like to break the expectations of the people. Like people tell you have to do this because you are smart. You have to study science because you're smart. Because I was good in school and I wanted to study hotel management. And everybody was like, are you crazy? Like you are supposed to study science because this is for those who are under 60.
Very true, man.
Yeah. It's, especially in Jordan, Anyway, so I said, no, I want to go study hotel management and I want to become one of the top 3 in the country. so I could take maybe like a scholarship. And that was my goal. And luckily, I was number one and number two in the last semester in the kingdom. So I took a scholarship. But again, I didn't want to take the scholarship because just literally a year before my graduation, I believe until now it's a miracle that the king decided to bring Roche from Switzerland and open the first ever culinary academy in Jordan, and was the number one in the Middle East, having a Swiss Roche, and Roche is the top in the world in hospitality. So I was like, this is it, but it's a private, and I couldn't afford it. We were not financially in a good stage. So I was like, okay, maybe if I get the number one in high school, I can get to convince them to give me a scholarship. And that's what I did. So I focused, I got number two, and then I got a scholarship from them. And yeah, I followed my dream. It was literally like I had to earn it to get there, you know?
Super, man. Like, and La Roche is basically, can you please tell me an idea what's La Roche school? Because it's the first time that I hear about it, actually.
So in the world, there is, I think La Roche is a hospitality hotel management school in Switzerland. They have few campuses around the world, in Spain and also I think in China as well. They have one, and Mexico. And the king opened the Culinary Academy specifically only for culinary arts. It wasn't for hospitality back then. And it's third top in hotel management in the world. So, but it's a very expensive institute. Like in Switzerland, rich people send their kids to get disciplined because the education is very military style, because hospitality is military, you know. But imagine, like, people send their kids there so they can get disciplined. Yet they pay like 60,000. However, the dad pays 60,000 like a year just for his child.
Just to teach their kids how to behave properly.
And how to clean.
Isn't this your job? I don't get
exactly. Yeah, they could have saved on that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So we were lucky because I was the second batch in the academy, and all the instructors were Swiss, Europeans, Westerners. So we had a really good education, and the standard was really high. Following that, I did internships in Jordan, in Four Seasons, in Marriott hotels. However, I realized that there's a huge gap between what I'm learning and with what the market has. And apparently people are not accepting somebody young, and I was 17 back then, to come and tell them that what you're doing is wrong. And so I felt like I won't grow in that environment. It's not my environment. However, I was so close to my friends, the culture. I had so many gigs I was doing on theater, music. And so it was a hard decision for me to say, okay, I want to do my second internship before graduation in Dubai. But I said, it's going to be 4 months. Why not? So I went to Dubai. I was 19. And I did my final internship. I said, okay, I can see myself growing here, yet not so a fan of the lifestyle. But I think I need to focus on my career.
So. What do you mean by the lifestyle? Like, what's, let's say, is it that you couldn't accommodate with over here when you first came in as Yazan, to new in this country? Like, because there's a lot of people like who usually like also transfer from their home country. They come here, they feel lost, they don't maybe adjust well to the environment. So what is it for you that you didn't really like when you first came in, let's say?
I think it was kind of a shock for me because it's everything I did here was out of my comfort zone. The biggest gap was for me the age. I was younger than anyone I worked with. The cultural differences is huge. Like I was always working in the environment, and most of the time I was the only Arab there. And it was not so easy because I think a lot of people have some issues with others and that they put it on you and you don't know what's going on. So. But I came with a very humble mentality. I'm young and I want to get, hard in life to learn, and that's the only way up. Because that's how I thought. Like, for me to grow up, I have to start from the bottom. And I wasn't fixated on money, even though we were in a situation as a family. I said to myself, I know as a chef, this is how it is. You have to start from the bottom. You can never expect yourself to get higher salary until you are on a point where people really need you. So yeah, other challenge was the living, the amount of focus on work and life.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I was working 6 days a week, 12 hours, 14 hours a day. Your social life is kind of
Very true.
hard, and especially as a chef in hospitality, probably people know your day off is not a weekend.
Mhm.
Usually weekend is the busiest day for you.
Mhm.
So you miss on every occasion, birthday, Christmas, Eid, anything you want is gone because you are going to have to work on that day. So yeah.
Very true, man. Like, usually when people see, let's say, someone who got to a point in their life, they usually neglect all
Yeah.
the journey which they've been through, and they focus only on, oh, okay, how did they get here? So they usually assume that, okay, it's like he or she have like a secret ingredient or they have like a shortcut, but they don't know that really people who have reached points in their life, they have walked through really hard times and have really walked every step of the way, you know, to get there.
Yeah.
So people usually, even nowadays on social media, when you look at people who have, let's say, a good, let's say, lifestyle, people think, or, oh, okay, how can we do what they're doing? But they don't take into consideration the amount of work which they put. They don't take into consideration all the, let's say, sleepless nights, all the birthdays that they've missed, such what you said. That's very true, man. So after Yazan have reached here in the UAE and you were 19 years old. What you did after? Like, where did you go from there? Like, what did you do to get to here?
Good question. Actually, I noticed that, I don't know, maybe a lot of people would not agree with me, but I noticed that life is full of surprises. So sometimes planning too much is not my game. However, in day to day, I like to plan I like to have a plan. So I'm not too flexible. But when it comes to the future, I'm not usually having a clear image because I feel like I have different images that it might fit. And I feel like you might get disappointed if you just get fixated on one goal. So back then when I was 19 and maybe until now, I still have that traces of like, I will follow my intuition, my heart, my passion. Okay. So being in the culinary scene in Dubai in the beginning was a bit, to be honest, at some point made me reach a down point where like, oh, did I took the right decision to be a chef? Because I have no life. And I'm a sociable person. I want to have social life. I want to enjoy my youth. And I didn't have time. In university, we were very strict. We didn't have actually much time to enjoy it. So I felt like my friends in my age, they're still having fun and I'm here working hard. So I was like, okay, did I do it?
Questioning your decisions.
Yeah. And then I realized, but doors are opening and door after door is showing me that, okay, you know what I'm doing now is exciting and there's something new opening every time. Until 2014, I did a cooking competition on TV. It was in Abu Dhabi, Ula TV. And I won that competition. And I worked with people who were all from BBC Food, the best food channels that I actually was watching as a teenager. And those directors and producers came to me. I was the last episodes they filmed in that series. And they told me, you are the best we had, and we think you need to do something about your talent. That was off the camera, everything on the side. So please, if you have an opportunity to do something, do it. And that stayed in my mind. And I said, okay, that means that I have something more than just being behind the kitchen cooking. My passion does not stop there. And I remembered one of my instructors in culinary school, he said a pep talk to us, and I never forget it. He said, don't think being a chef is just a restaurant and a hotel. The sky is your limit. You can be a chef in a plane. You can be a chef in a ship. You can be a chef in so many ways nowadays. He was the private chef of Tom Cruise at some point. So I was like, oh, interesting. So I heard the plane. And anyway, it came out that I saw one time a commercial about Etihad having in-flight chefs. So I read the qualifications and I don't fit. It's so high. It was like too much, like asking for Michelin star experiences, 5-star, chefs. And I was still young, but I applied and I got a call and I did the interview. I went to that day and I was like surrounded by executives. And I was like, okay, out of 70, we ended up 3 and we got it. And I was like, wow. So
why do you think you got it?
I think because I realized that later on, the airline was not looking for only skills. They were looking for a personality, and they wanted what I actually am passionate about is people, to smile, to give, to serve, not just cooking, because in the plane is something else. And for me, that was like a dream come true, because I wanted to travel the world. And as a Jordanian citizen, we need visa almost everywhere. So it was like, wow, I'm going to be an in-flight chef, flying the world as a chef. And why am I doing this? Because everyone's like, but you're going to leave the kitchen. You won't continue, keep going with your path. But I said, yeah, but I will taste the world. Like that's the only way a chef can know the flavor of every dish. So I was like, yeah, that's my goal. I was 23 back then. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. So I did this. I was moved to Abu Dhabi, 2014. And I did that. And then I realized after a while, you know what, let me talk to the same producers who did my show and ask them, what can I do about it next? And I had a coffee with one of them, and she told me, Yazan, nowadays, it was still, Instagram was new. She's like, Yazan, nowadays, it's not about TVs anymore. It's all about social media. So how about you post about what you're doing as a chef while you're traveling? So I was like, okay. So I started my page on Instagram called Chef Stamps back then. And I was like, okay, I want to stamp my way around the world as a chef and just be honest, do some videos. It wasn't so focused, what is it mainly, but I was just sharing, you know? And it was good. It was the crew, Etihad, and a lot of people find it very good. Later on, I was doing videos even for the crew, how to cook at home and stuff like that. So it was very interesting. And to keep it short, later on, I realized there was a time where the airline was going through a lot of cost cutting. So they gave us a lot of unpaid leave. So I was frustrated after 4 years, because I stayed 6 years with the airline. After 4 years, I started to feel, okay, I'm losing my skills and I'm getting bored of being in a flight. However, I love traveling. So how can I use my time? So I realized I can be like doing chef events. So there was new websites you can deal with where you can register as a chef. You have your reviews, you have your menu. People can book you and you can make special events for them. Okay. And 2017, August, I got the first client, which until now I'm actually working with them. It's basically
definitely no first client and it's the most special client.
Yeah, I did a private event for her and her husband, and ever since we kind of became really in a good relationship. So I kept doing events for them in my days off. Whenever I have time off, I'll do events. They even sometimes they used to be very kind and tell us you're off and we will make our events on it. So I started doing different dinners, events, and which was another experience, because like, oh, now I can do my own menu, because in the airline you have to follow the company. But now I can come to people, give them my menu, and they're paying for it, so they're not gonna tell you a compliment for nothing. And I was getting good reviews, and I started to cook for like different families, groups, birthdays, anniversaries, and proposals in Dubai, in here. And I kept it as a side. And I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, I leave the airline, I have something, or I've developed kind of like a clientele background. And then a friend of mine asked me, Yazan, would you know how to consult a restaurant? They want to open in Dubai, and do a consultation for them to do a menu inspired by Levantine cuisine. Okay. I said, yeah, why not? I mean, I studied this, but I never did it. So I said, okay, let me try. And I tried it, and I said, okay, that sounds like I can do it. So flying, private, and consultation started. Yeah.
You mentioned that you, let's say, set up for the menu for, let's say, private personnel and consultancy for, let's say, restaurants and so on. Like, what do you take into consideration when you design a menu? Like, what things you have to meet as Yazan for making up a menu? Like, what are the standards for making a menu in a restaurant, basically?
That actually is connected to a consultation. If we're talking about a restaurant, it's kind of different than, let's say, a couple who want to have an experience. But the one thing in common is you want to know your market targets. You want to know what they are looking for. For example, if they want a specific cuisine, and what's their expectations, dietary restrictions. They might need food that has no gluten, or dairy free, or even either vegan, whatever. It could be that you have to put in mind. However, the part that I have to put is that flavor, of course, is the most important thing. Presentation is crucial, but at the same time, textures. And textures plays a role with how you cook your food, keeping the nutrients inside your food. Because if you're just going to fry everything, you're not reaching anywhere with just one texture, maybe. But yeah, I mean, like handling the vegetables, handling the meats, right, and respecting your ingredients is very important for as a chef. And at the same time is, for me, I used to call narrating a story on a plate. So I wanted when I make an event for people, every dish I go and I had to present the story behind it. And back then when I was traveling, I used to link my dishes to my destinations. So, and I used to buy ingredients from destinations. So I go to Morocco and I buy Ras Al Hanout spice, or I go to Italy and I buy, I don't know, olive oil or Ghazala. And then I come home and I say, okay, what can I do as a Jordanian, Palestinian influence into this dish that I can make it kind of my own Mediterranean touch to it, or Levantine touch to it. And when I come to the people, I tell them this dish is inspired by my travel to Morocco. It has these ingredients. The technique might be Western, but it always has something that is me. It could be a za'atar, it could be spice or summa.
Like your touch, let's say your touch, your heritage touch in this dish.
Yes, yeah. Because I feel like food is not just about food. It's when it comes to you hiring a chef, it means you're expecting something more. And you're expecting to have a story, you're expecting to have some kind of like a wow factor. Not just, like, because when you get involved into something, it's more exciting. And as well, I like to put my memories into it. Like memory for me is a very important thing. I'm blessed to have a very sharp memory. And I like to link like a dish my dad made for me, or my mother made for me, or my grandmother made for me, and try to actually do it in a way to make people reimagine it, or to see it, or or try to take something people already experienced as their on their childhood, and like redo it or replicate it on this way. Yeah,
very nice, man. Like, for me, you're describing like cooking for me as a normal person, and it sounds like an art for you.
It does, yeah.
It really sounds like an art. Like you're telling me like there's a story behind it, the way you do it, the texture, and so on. Like for me, a normal person, I would just like, what I think of is just like cooking and eating it, and that's it. But the way that I see it from your angle, it's like you're talking about something that you're extremely passionate about. Like I can see the difference between someone who's passionate about something, which is you now, and me as someone who's, let's say, just a regular and who just does it for the sake of doing it. So I think the excellence of, let's say, doing something, there's passion always behind it. Like there's someone who dreams of it, like who thinks about it all day long, and who always thinks of, okay, how can I make it better? How can I live it more? How can I create a memory? How can I make it something special for me and reflect it in my talent, let's say, which is cooking for you, or like being a chef, as it says. So after now you get to a point where you worked as a consultant for restaurants, and
and then we all have to speak about the COVID period where it changed everyone's direction. Luckily, it actually, for me, it was a good step, because I realized that all the time I invested in doing all these side things actually paid off in that moment, because the airline decided to remove the chef position completely. We all had to leave in one email, which for me, I understood that, because I mean, it was the direction, the cost, and all this thing. And in that moment, I was actually with 3 offers, and really good offers, even better when I had in Etihad. And I said, okay. And one of them was my client that I told you about, the first client I had. And I said, to be honest, I feel comfortable working with them. They were very supportive, understanding. And I said, but I wanted to also have my space to do other things. Is that okay with you? And they agreed. So I had my kind of freedom, So I work as a private chef, but at the same time, I was doing different consultation project. Until last year, I was contacted by a company that does the consultation for airlines. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. You see, like life is full of because they saw that my manager from Etihad recommended me. And apparently they wanted our current project is Saudi Airlines. So they wanted a contemporary Arabic cuisine expert. So they thought of me. So I was like, okay, great. I've never done that before. They said, just we'll give you guidance. They've offered me a full-time job, but I said, I'm not looking to move to Saudi now. I want to stay here. So they said, could you work with us part-time? So I'm now part-timing with my company doing Saudi project, which is a really good step because I stayed with, part of me stayed with the airline experience, which I really should do this because I have the experience and I wanted to now implement it, but into the design. So we design menus, basically. We do product development. We open stations in different countries. So it's very exciting, to be honest. So yeah, so now private, this is me now, private airline consultation. And if I have restaurants to consult with free time, I could do that.
What's product development that you guys do, basically? Like, what products are you developing, like in an airline?
So our company that we work for now is known for making airlines get a 5-star. So they did that with airlines such as Qatar Airways. And recently what we do is product development means like we redesign the menus. So now our target is we have Saudi cuisine, the original one, then you have contemporary Arabic, and then you have modern European. So we take each one of the menu, we do design, we write recipes. At the same time, we have to go and do implementation. But it's quite different in airlines because an airlines is not a restaurant as much as you wanted it to be, because that's our aim. We wanted to make it more a restaurant, but you have to be very specific with your grammage and like everything, even nutrition. You have to be very specific because
in an airline, you should be like, let's say, considerate of the nutrition of the food.
Yes, because you need to think about the amount of calories every guest has. It also goes into a lot of health regulation, a lot of nutrition regulation, because I mean, your safety in the end, you know, and it's part of safety that you need to have certain things offered in terms of like why they add more carbs, the reason, you know, like there's some logic behind it and some regulations we had to follow. But we design a menu. We also design products. We do training for as a company, we do training for the crew. Even the new relaunch of their brand was done by us, the uniforms and everything. But I'm more into the design of the menus. Yeah,
super. And like I think like someone like you have traveled around the world and like say you visited so many, and you have like a quite good knowledge of like different cuisines and the difference like between the cultures, like, and the food they present and so on. Like, what's something which you have, let's say, took from all the different cultures? Like, what have you noticed from traveling around the world and seeing their different cuisines, and like what traveling have taught you, like into being a better chef? Like, how did it reflect on you being able to reflect that back on you? Like, how did traveling help you in being a better chef, basically?
I think it's an amazing question. I think the reconnecting with people's stories is something that inspired me a lot. And as we said, sometimes food can be art, and when it's art, and an artist needs an inspiration, needs that kind of, you know, like something to give them that motivation to do something new and to put their signature on.
That is the intangible touch, as they say. Yeah.
So traveling especially like taught me when you meet people, you hear their stories about their childhood food memories. That inspired me, the ingredients they use. And there's one thing in common between all the culture. All the cuisine mainly was built on poverty. So there's a reason why people use spices this way, why they use this type of vegetable or meat, because that's what's available. And you start to see that people with what they have, they manage to make something that they are happy with and they sustain it for years. So what ingredient I can learn from here, or what can I take from here? So, you know, like it's really interesting. Like for example, like you learn that spices actually have really a lot of history in the Asian culture. Olive oil, oh my God, like olive oil is something so rich, and how many dishes is built on that. And like, for example, the focaccia in bread in Italy is full of olive oil, and the reason it was made for the workers because they need energy. So there's so many things that you get inspired by the sound of it as well. But as well, I think the textures, sometimes I think it's very good that you have exposure to different cuisine, but your expectations become so high because now you tasted the best pad thai in Thailand, and not going to be easy on any pad thai you taste afterwards.
Yes, it's not going to be as good as the pad thai which you have tried it, let's say, back in Thailand.
Exactly, yeah.
And like, as you traveled, I'm pretty sure that like you maybe have noticed this thing, but because I did, for example.
Yeah.
Like, when you go, let's say, for Italy, when you go to Spain, when you go to Africa, whatever country it is, you see the people over there, they have like, let's say, a traditional cuisine which they eat every day. Let's say the lunch, breakfast, dinner, and so on. Like they have like main dishes. As you know, for example, in Italy, they have mainly the pasta, pizza, and this is what we know over here.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm correct. Over there, the obesity rate would be not as high as if you, let's say, for example, we over here, we're eating the same cuisine. And that I heard also from my friends. For example, I have a friend who lives in Germany. He's from Syria originally. So his body is adapted more, let's say, to the Bilad al-Sham, the cuisine of Bilad al-Sham, and all Mediterranean cuisine, basically, let's say. So when he went over there and started eating their food, his body started gaining weight more and more. Although the people over there are not obese and they are eating the same food. So something I always thought of is why? Like, why is it when you put, let's say, for example, someone in a different environment, their body doesn't react as the people who have been living over there? Have you noticed that? Like, maybe
I did actually, and I think, I mean, genetics plays a big role in that. Like in the Middle East, we have bigger tendency for weight gain. I think for diabetic reasons. I could, like, for example, my cousin, she's a pharmacist and she's working in US all her life. And she told me that in Middle Easterns, we have a very weak pancreas because we can't actually digest really well beans, for example. And why? We eat a lot of beans here, right?
It's part of our
But I think
diet.
it could be like a reaction, or because for me, for example, I noticed I start to have intolerances to some food. And I think it has to do a lot with our genetics, our parents as well. At the same time, I noticed the same thing where you're talking about your friend in US. So everyone who moved to US is gaining weight. Actually, yesterday I was talking to my best friend. He's in New York now. And he told me, it's so weird now. Every time I'm eating carbs, I feel like I'm allergic to it. I wake up, I have a problem with my breathing. I'm having an issue with my stomach. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong with their carbs. Like I was eating back home and everything was fine. So I believe it's processing the food now that's affecting, because there's a lot of additives added to the food. And I believe that our bodies are still adapted to our ancestors. So it does not go as fast as we are going as humans with the development. So I was thinking about, for example, gluten. And I was watching a documentary that shows that bread used to be fermented for days. And there was nothing called instant yeast. It was called mother yeast or wild yeast, which you keep the flour and the water outside for days until it starts bubbling. And then you use that for every time you want to make bread, and bread takes time. So the yeast takes time to break down the gluten, which is the protein of the flour. And so it does the work for your stomach. So your stomach from your ancestors is not used to digest the gluten as now. But now we are doing what? We are fast forwarding this process. We're adding instant yeast. We're adding sugar, bread enhancers, glucose syrups into ingredients that our body never saw before, never thought of it. It's all processed. It does not come from a tree. And we made it like kind of surprising moment for our stomachs to say, oh, what the hell is that? Sorry, I'm not seeing this
Like
before.
the body is still not adapted. Like
No.
they don't have the capacity to digest, let's say, or so on. Like, for
Yes.
example, alcohol, like we don't have the capacity to adjust with it. But they tell you, for example, like by a time, if you keep on eating something for a while, maybe the body starts adapting. But up to this point, we have still not adapted maybe to gluten, to some people to lactose, to other things which make them allergic to, which they are allergic to.
But
like,
also, I think the part of us not moving as much as before, that's also a big thing. Like, food and nutrition is crucial, but also how much effort we are doing during the day. Do we work out? Do we walk? Do we do all these things? Because stress is another factor. You know, like stress can add a lot of fat to your stomach, and so I think that's all goes in the same map, I would say. Sorry. And so I believe that it's also about your steps, your movement, your heart rate, your like what are you doing during your week. Because for me, I have the tendency to gain weight if I let myself out and do whatever I want. And then maybe my metabolism history is like that, you know. So, however, people, their metabolism is much better. They eat more than what I eat, and they still are like able to not work out and stay fit.
Very true.
So it's hard, you know, like everybody has a different reaction. But I believe in the end, it's very important that you need to treat your body the way you treat somebody you care about. You know, if you have a pet, for example, you're not going to give your pet anything. You're going to give the pet the best food, take them to the best doctors. If the doctor told you to give them medicine, you give them that medicine on time. So why don't we treat ourselves like that?
It's very good question, man. Like, for example, just like smoking, like you read on the label that, hey, this thing is going to kill you, yet people still do it. Like, I don't know what is it with humans that they have the tendency to self-destruct. Then they reflect back on it, on the society, on how situation is hard and so on. But like when you look at it, you tell them, okay, hey, tell me what are you doing in your life? You see them sleeping all day. They don't work properly. They have bad relations with their peers and so on, like whatever it is. And you like sit in here and wonder, like, don't they see? How is it that these people can't see that they're not putting the effort? They're not putting the 1 + 1 to equal 2, basically.
Yeah.
Yazan, where does let's say you mentioned that moving and not having, let's say, a sedentary lifestyle helps heavily, let's say, in fixing the body in a sense, or let's say fixing the metabolism of the body. Like, where does training fits in your life as Yazan? Like, as being, let's say, busy all the time and to have a busy schedule at work and you travel and so on.
I have to say, by end of this month, I celebrate myself 6 years of being consistent on healthy workouts and lifestyle. I've lost 25 kg ever since. Of course, there's ups and downs.
How long did it take you to lose the 25 kg?
It took me I would say maybe 4 or 5 months. It took me time. But I was of course, after gradually, but it was also sometimes you have ups and downs. So you might gain 3, 4, 5, and then you come back again. But the one thing I never changed ever since is keeping focus on my food, nutrition, and workout. So I put priority in anything I do. First thing, I need to make sure I have time for that. For me, I can never take that off because I realize that's kind of my I don't want to say happy pill, but more like the part of my day that will
makes you happy.
Makes you happy. It makes you kind of like energized, and it's a lot about maybe our self-image that, you know, like I feel like I achieved something. I feel good.
Very true.
I mean, a part, of course, there's a huge part of it in neuroscience why it's making you feel this way, but I think it's really important that I don't want to have a lifestyle that will not allow me to do a workout. And it could be whatever workout you want. For me, I love now in this weather to go run outside because it's just really energized me. And I do gym sometimes as well, like whenever I want. But yeah, I think cardio I like it personally. Yeah, it makes me happy.
Like basically the advice that I usually tell people is that, hey, do something which fits you as a person. Like, don't look into what others are doing. Like, schedule your day. Tell me, what do you love? If you love swimming, go swim. If you love cycling, go cycle. Just do something.
Go walk.
Exactly.
But just do something. Yeah.
Just do something. You don't have to do what others are doing to get to the results that they are getting to, because they are doing something which they love, which they are consistent with, which they wake up every day to be like, oh, hey, I love this. I want to do this. So do something which fits you and your life.
Absolutely.
How did you program your food? Like, what changes did you implement on your diet to lose this weight?
Good question. I think I added fasting into my lifestyle because I realized
intermittent fasting. How many hours do you fast?
So minimum 16 and maximum 18, like an average of 16 to 18. Sometimes
hours.
I go 24 in some days, but let's say 16 is my rule. And I try not to, so basically it's to limit the amount of intake of food you can have. The challenge I have, especially now, is that I have to taste and I have to try a different type of food. So I'm always surrounded by food, to be honest. And it's not so good because you get like
you break the fast.
Yeah,
basically.
and you can start like eating here, and you think you're not eating, but you're tasting here and here and there, and your insulin resistance going up and down maybe or something.
Very true.
So I was like, okay, fasting was good for me, and I started with keto at the beginning, but then I stopped keto because I realized it's not very sustainable.
Why did you feel that? Like, what shifted you away from keto? Because I hear also a lot of people usually suggest keto. Like, why wasn't it sustainable for you as Yazan?
I think as a chef, it's not very sustainable because if I'm going to cook something like for a client, a carb or sweet, I need to taste it to make sure it's good. And in keto, it's kind of very strict about your ketones. And if like 1 gram extra might change your ketosis. So I was like, okay, that's not very sustainable for me. But I kept a lot of logics from ketos in my food. Like I usually personally on low carb diet. I don't eat sugar as much as I can. I don't eat even sweet fruits. Like at some points, I choose the fruits. I do kind of read a lot about the nutrients and the sugar level and everything. So I'll make sure my food choices. I have my days where I wanted to enjoy, like going out with my friends, so it depends.
To live a life, let's say, because sometimes like...
when I travel, I say to myself, no rules, enjoy it, like literally. Because this is the moment where you don't want to really think about it.
This is the point where you need to balance it out, like as a human, because like if you were strict all the time, then maybe you'll get to a point where like you're going to start questioning yourself, like, do I really want to live such a strict life, or do I need also to indulge every once in a while, just like to live a while, like live it يعني شوي، بس إنه مثل ما بقول إنه تغير حياتك in a sense شوي. And so you lost the 25 kg within this period via intermittent fasting. What else? Like continue for me about your food. Like what's a normal day in your life? Like what do we usually eat basically?
Now I would, okay, good. So for example, I would usually have like break my fast with high protein. So I eat an omelette with cottage cheese, let's say, and maybe a salad or something with it. I eat blueberries and raspberries a lot. I tend to I love salads, so I make myself sometimes just whatever, like grilled steak, chicken, salmon, and I love tahini, so I put tahini on with lemon on it. So salad.
I like tahini too.
Yeah, it's like I love that. It's good. It's good. Yeah, and and basically I might have another salad or something later on, and then at usually 8 p.m. I stop eating, and that's the time when I leave work, and I don't eat until the next day. So yeah, that's all. And before, I mean, sometimes I tried also doing 1 meal a day. That worked sometimes for me, but when I was more like not working the kitchen, I could do that. But a normal life, that would be my normal diet usually. Yeah.
I tried actually once the 1 meal a day thing. It didn't work for me because I usually get to feel very full. Like my stomach used to irritate me in a sense, because I usually say, for example, I eat, let's say, 3,000 calories a day. I used to divide them, let's say, into 2-3 meals a
Yeah.
day. Like when I combine them all in once, it used to be like a feast.
Yeah.
Like my stomach couldn't take it. Like I used to feel like, it's not very good for me. So I had to redivide them back in.
Good.
And that's when I started feeling better and better. Where is Yazan going in the future? Like, where are you going? What are your plans for yourself in the future? Like, as a working in consultancy right now, and what's your plan later on?
It might, well, again, like I don't have a specific thing I can say. However, I know that for me, this is my like overall, let's say, statement that guides me to whatever step I go. Better. Where is going to be tomorrow is going to be better. That's my aim. If it's better, keeping my health, keep better growing in my work, in my career. I believe like I'm investing my time also in the consultancy field right now. So I believe it might open more doors in the future. I have few ideas about opening a business in the future. That's something I'm still debating, or if I want to actually invest some time with doing videos. So I have few ideas that I'm going to see which one will fit me more. But I know for sure the future is going to be better for me. And I mean, because, you know, you have to put yourself into foundations that you grow on, and growth will keep growing, but the foundation is the most important thing. So the foundation is there. I'm going to make sure that it stays always stable and healthy. So whatever keeps growing is going to keep growing healthy, you know? Yeah.
And like you told me that you're into psychology nowadays. And there's a question that I usually ask the guests when they come over here to the podcast is, are you happy in life currently? Are you happy as Yazan?
Good question. What do we mean by happy?
What is happiness to you?
Contentment. Having yourself being content with and peaceful with yourself, I think. Because I believe happiness is more of an occasional feeling. You might have happy days for getting, you know, good news, like you're achieving something that could make you happy. But life does not have consistent happiness, I believe. We all have to go through the seasons, I believe, like summer, winter, and autumn. And that's why I believe, like, now I'm in a season where I'm happy, personally. However, I know that I accept life with whatever it is, hopefully. I keep going with that mentality. Because if I reach a point where the situation made me unhappy, or the period of time made me unhappy, I should not get bitter and angry about myself, and accept that this is life. It might come after that, maybe I'm going to be happy again. And so it's like the heart rate going up and down. So I think happiness, and that's my understanding for it.
Usually, when I talk to people, from what I understood also from them, is that their expectations is usually also like a reason for being happy or depressed. Like usually people have certain expectations of life, and when they don't meet it, that when they don't get to it, they start, let's say, getting a shock. So maybe also it could be like living a life where you don't expect anything, like living a life just from a day-to-day basis, as you said, without having a plan for the future. Because
not exactly, not to have, like, there should be fundamentals you should have in your mind, like your plan. Okay, maybe you want to have a family. This is good plans, you can have them, you know. But I think, as you said, it's very hard to say that no one has zero expectations. Everybody says don't have expectations. It's an expectation, I think, by itself, because you're a human, and expecting something is kind of part of your safety system, where you want to know, because knowledge for you of the future is part of you knowing that you're going to be safe tomorrow. So it's about fear. So it goes to the roots of yourself, that you want to know tomorrow, or you want to feel like you can fit to this, so you will feel accepted. There's many layers, factors, I would say, and factors. But I think managing your expectations is what's important, because you could you need to not suppress them. Like you might expect yourself to reach a goal, but you need to give yourself time. You can't say to yourself like, I expect you to reach this goal tomorrow. Like, no, you need more time, so you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, very true.
And I think, because I'm very hard on myself, and I noticed that, and I think it goes maybe from being maybe from my childhood being like that. And of course we all have our own traumas. So that also adds a lot of pressure, because when you expect something from yourself, you're judging yourself for not having that expectation done. And I believe that it's very important that we kind of keep ourselves into that self-care and also reward. You need to reward yourself.
Do you think it's a good thing to be very self-critical of yourself?
At some point, yes.
Sometimes it's like backfires, like, and it stops you, it blocks you.
It's
because in your mind, like, I have to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then you start feeling like, oh, crap, like I need to try it again. And you stop moving in forward until you, like, let's say, perfect something which cannot be perfected, let's say, in a sense.
I agree. I think it's a thin line. Yeah, that. And as long as, think about it as a coach, you have a coach, your coach, do you want your coach to be strict, or you want him to tell you to do whatever you want? You want it to be strict, but at the same, not too strict to a point that will make you want to fire them. So you want to treat yourself this way, like discipline yourself, because discipline or being consistent in something requires discipline. And discipline sometimes requires some kind of accountability, like you have to be accountable to yourself. And I believe, I could be too hard on myself sometimes, but I've learned this, I think like a few years ago. I fell down many times from the bicycle when I was a child, that I hit myself, that I developed kind of a fear of cycling. Until I think 2015 or 16, my friend told me, come with me to Yas, they're doing this cycling, and try. I said, you know what, I'm going to break this fear. I asked him to stay close to me, and I tried. I was afraid, felt a little bit shaky, but I did it. And ever since, I broke this fear. So what I learned is that it might be not a big deal, and I broke this fear, but I want to take this small success that I did and tell myself for the bigger parts in life. For the bigger parts so you need to kind of have a record of all the overcomings you did to remind yourself for the next challenges. And one of the ways I actually personally find it very good, ever since I was a teenager, I used to write, journaling. And I noticed that it's very good to document your success, because the moment you are sad or down, you technically
go back to it.
Yeah, because you're automatically not going to think good things about yourself. So you need to see it. You need to read it.
You need to see the proof that, hey,
you did this, you did that, you succeeded, and you overcame this, you can overcome that. So if you did that record, you'll be like, oh, then I'm not a failure. I can do it. Or maybe you need to motivate yourself in that sense, the way you would motivate even a child, So that's the self-reflection that I actually learned throughout my life, that kept me always thinking, you need to be a winner in whatever you do. Competitive is something is in our genetics.
It's like something which usually pushes you forward, like this winner mentality of, hey, let me see what others are doing, so I need to break that. So you move forward yourself. Like, how should I put it? Like, in order for me, for example, let's say I love training, for example, one thing that usually helped me in being better is competing.
Yeah.
Like, I used to go compete and see myself among others and see, where am I? Like, why am I not winning? Why is someone else is winning? Like, how should I get there? So, like, in the other period, I would start, okay, now I have a goal for that record, for example. So I'm going to plan my day to break that record.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, like, sometimes, as you said, like, being hard on yourself to a certain extent can really help you in being better. And sometimes it can block you. So the thin line between being perfect in something, like the thin line of moving forward in something and not stopping you from moving forward is something that people have to self-reflect on.
Yeah.
And see okay, where's my tangible, let's say, block, and how can I keep moving forward but not break myself in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important part because I think, I don't know why I'm thinking of it as a father and a child. The father will push the child, and if the child fail, would the father reaction would be, you're a failure, or it would be like, it's okay, keep going. So the same thing, yeah, try again. So this is where the thin line is, and what you leave in that child's ears is what's going to remain in his life.
It's like the seed which you implant in them.
Yeah, but I've learned this from actually my uncle as a big example for me, successful person, that there are winners in life. You choices if you want to identify yourself with one of them. So for me, I kind of adapted to this, that I am a winner, and if I don't win, okay, it's hard for me to accept that, but it's not gonna change the definition. You know, you might not win today, you might win tomorrow, you might win in something else. And this is something I also learned that made me answer the reason why I questioned changing my career or questioning my career when I was in Dubai, because I realized it's, football that actually came up to my mind. As a team, you have each player has a strength in something, The defender cannot be a goalkeeper.
Very true.
Right? So you need to think of yourself, but they're all football players, So if I'm a chef, that doesn't mean, if I'm a chef and I was put into another kitchen, a different environment, and I feel like I'm failing, if I judge myself as being a bad chef, then it's wrong, because maybe I am not supposed to be in the defense and I was supposed to be in that. So you need to understand where you can flourish and grow in where your power is, and what's your your power points. You're a good runner, then you run.
Like focusing on your strength, as they
focusing on the strength and implementing them in the right place, that will make you feel that you're growing, you're getting feedback towards yourself, you're growing. It's a lot of things, but all these things you learn by yourself. I think the most important thing is you need to know yourself, and self-awareness goes first. For me, I'm good at it with myself because I do a lot of self-reflection, but I know it's hard for some people. So I would suggest people can either write down their thoughts or talk to somebody close, and self-reflection helps you a lot to know yourself. And once you know yourself, you know what works and what doesn't work for you,
Beautiful. Yazan, thank you very much. I think I can end the episode on this beautiful note. Is there anything that you want to add before we finish this episode?
Thank you, first of all. It was a pleasure to have this time. I think it's, if I wanted to leave people with one thing, I want to leave them with thinking that treat yourself as someone you care about, and put your health first. And this is my mentality. I mean, I'm still 32, but I'm thinking, I always say, if I meet my Yazan 75 years old, would I feel that I regret not doing some things in that age? Maybe I don't know how would I think in the future, but I want to try to make sure that I make my future self proud of my moments.
Your past, your current Yazan.
Your current Yazan, yeah.
Your current Yazan. Yazan, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's been really nice talking to you, and I appreciate you coming in for this episode. And I wish you nothing but happiness in life, and all the best for you and your family. And thank you very much again.
Shukran. Thank you.